Hey ladies, this is Molly, and I hope that my connection will hold out for us to chat for a little bit and talk about stress. So, of course, I did not, sorry, to delete that. Of course, I keep forgetting to turn off my calls and all that jazz before I get started, but I'm going to go ahead and dive right in and see how far we can get. Let me know if you can hear me. If you pop on, let me know where you're at, and let me know what kind of stress it is that you've got going on. So I had to make a couple of notes so that I could try to stay on track, because y'all know how I can get off track and squirrel a little bit, but that's okay, because I'll find my way back. So first of all, stress in and of itself, we think about all of the stress that we have in our lives today. We live in a fast-paced world, and everybody talks about being stressed. Everybody says that they feel stressed. Everybody complains about it, feeling overwhelmed, tired all the time, too much to do. It's just sort of become part of our nature and part of our normal language. And I'm going to try to remember to come back to that, but I want to say something about that the things that we say, words have power. And so when we say things like that, when we constantly say, I'm so stressed, we are just adding to our stress. Hello, do you pronounce your name Michelle? Michelle? I like the way that's spelled. That's beautiful. Hello, Eliza. So anyway, when we say we're stressed, when we say we're overwhelmed, we're only building on the stress. We're only continuing to have it be a part of us and sort of it becoming who we are because we say it all the time. So I'm going to come back to that. Hopefully, I'm going to come back to that in one of the ways that we can help ourselves to knock it off, right? Okay. So something that I learned about, I've talked about this before. So years ago, I was diagnosed after being misdiagnosed, but I was finally diagnosed with Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune disease. It's the one that affects your thyroid. And I also had adrenal fatigue. And stress is the number one cause of adrenal fatigue. Stress causes inflammation, and autoimmune disorders are inflammation. So that's a lot to take in and a lot to have to learn how to change your lifestyle. The biggest thing being is that you need to chill out, and stop being so stressed, which was a lot easier for me to do before my daughter died. But obviously her death, it's like a stress that's just always there, because I can't change that, right? One thing that I learned about, especially with adrenal fatigue, because stress, again, it literally stresses out your adrenals. They're the little glands above your kidneys, and they have to do with cortisol and your fight or flight. And if you're constantly in a state of stress, then you're constantly feeling like you need to run around and like you're about to be chased by a lion, but none of us are being chased by lions, okay? So here's the deal. Your body does not recognize the different kinds of stresses as being anything but stress. So this is what a doctor that I heard speak about this likened it to. So you have a stress cup, and your body can handle so much stress before it starts to shut down, or you get an autoimmune disorder or whatever, all these different things that can happen. So you have a stress cup. So your cup can hold a certain amount of stress. It doesn't matter where that stress comes from. It doesn't matter if it's stress, bad stress, like stress from work, stress from family problems, stress from grief, or if it's good stress, like say that you're working out a lot and you're building your muscles. That puts stress on your body. So it doesn't matter what kind of stress, good or bad stress, your body can only handle so much stress before it starts to overflow. And you know what your body can handle. You can feel it. If you're paying attention to your body, you know when you've pushed it too far. When it doesn't matter if you got a full night's sleep, you still wake up exhausted because your body is spent, right? If you're burning the candle at both ends, as we like to say. And for us, most of that time, the stress that I'm talking about is emotional stress. It's mental stress. Because what we're dealing with as grieving women, that's at the forefront of our mind. That's our baseline, right? And anything beyond that is going to push us over the edge. So I think I said that clear enough. Hopefully I did. Let me know if you understand what I'm talking about when I say that we all have a stress cup, and no matter what kind of stress it is that we experience, our body can only hold so much before it overflows and causes something, whether it's physical, whether we start slapping people, you know, things like that. Okay, so there's different kinds of stress. Stress from change. So obviously a change has happened in your life where, hey Allie, obviously a change has happened in your life where, as a grieving woman, your role has changed. So if your mom died, or your sibling died, or your child died, your role has changed, and your day-to-day things that you are used to have changed, right? Like you no longer are talking to them or spending time with them or taking them to the doctor or having them over for dinner or braiding their hair. You know, these things, these changes have occurred, and that's stressful, obviously. Stress from emotions. Again, obviously, you know, sadness and pain, these emotions, anger and frustration and all of these emotions that we have, that causes stress, that adds to the stress, because we're full of these emotions, especially when we're trying to repress them. That just adds to the stress. Conflict. I feel like a lot of times I'm repeating myself, but all of this stuff goes hand in hand, so I'm just going to keep on repeating myself. But conflict comes from family or friends or society, coworkers, whoever, that are butting heads with you, is either because they don't want you to be grieving, or because of the roles have changed, because they feel a different way than you feel, and there's just constant conflict happening, right? That is can be a huge stressor. And then there's also stress from pressure that gets put on us by those around us to fill in the blank, to move on, to let go, to get over it, to fill in the blank. Okay? You know what I'm talking about. Go ahead and comment if you have an example of something that somebody has said to you that was pressure that made you feel stressed because somebody's telling you how you should feel or what you should do. Again, I could talk for 10 minutes just about that. And then frustration. Stress from the frustration of the fact that that things are the way they are. We can't have what we want, and we can't change something about our situation. So we're frustrated, and we're stuck in that frustration because, and when I talk about acceptance, you know, we talk about wanting to accept that our loved one is dead. Acceptance doesn't mean I'm happy about it. Acceptance doesn't mean I've come to a place where it doesn't bother me, I don't care, or I don't miss them. That is not what acceptance is at all. Seriously, I promise you, I thought I closed the door, and here comes the cat. She's the boss. So we get frustrated because, again, all of these things go to when we are putting off dealing with our emotions and dealing with our feelings and looking it head on and working through it. And fighting against it is just adding to the stress. So this is what we do when we have a stressful situation, a stressful moment, or whatever the case is. So we have to analyze it. So we ask two questions. Whatever it is that's stressing us out in that moment, is this relevant to me, and is it a threat to me? Those are the questions. Is this relevant to me, and is it a threat to me, in whatever way, shape, or form? So you have to ask yourself that question. In that moment, what is it that it feels like for you? So if the answer is yes, and for the most part, the answer is going to be yes. Seriously, my bestie is like texting me that she lost her phone and now she found it. Okay, honey, I'll check with you later. Okay, So if the answer is yes, and for most of us as grieving women, the answer is going to be yes, that it is relevant and it is a threat, because we are already at a certain level of stress as grieving women already. So everything is just piled on top of that, right? It's just one more thing. So the question that we ask next is, do I have the resources to cope with the stressor? Do I have the resources to cope with this? If you have not been doing the work, if you have not been listening to what I'm saying, if you hear it and you're like, that sounds great, but I'm not ready, or I don't believe it, whatever, then the answer is no. You don't have the resources to cope with the stressors, and they're just going to keep slapping you in the face. Like every time you turn around, you're just going to get knocked down by more and more stress. We're susceptible to negative coping whenever we don't have the resources to cope with the stress. So there's a list from an article that I read. Some coping mechanisms when we are feeling overwhelmed, when we're confused, when we're exhausted, which are we not always overwhelmed, confused, and exhausted when we are dealing with grief? Because it's just a constant wave. Like if you start to feel better, then another wave hits, right? Hi, Sunny. Thanks for coming. Thanks for joining. So non-constructive ways to deal with the stress. Remember I said, do I have the resources to deal with whatever it is that's stressing me out right now? Non-constructive ways to deal with that, with the stress, would be giving up, blaming others, defensive coping, just like picking fights, or assuming that everything that somebody says to you is something that you need to argue about, striking out at others. Thank you, Sunny. Substance abuse, right? It's very tempting to check out. It's very tempting. I do not drink. I feel like if I did start drinking, I could easily, alcoholism runs in my family. I chose not to ever drink because, for one reason, I know that alcoholism runs in my family, and for two, I do not like the feeling of ever being slightly out of my abilities to think clearly. The same thing with narcotics and other mood-altering drugs. Everything else that I've ever been put on, I've been put on pain pills and things like that before. I do not like the way that I feel out of control, and I do not like the thought of that I'm going to pass out and something could happen and I wouldn't wake up for when my kids need me or something. I don't feel like that's an irrational fear. I feel like that I'm being responsible by choosing not to do that. However, people do it. We can choose. We can choose to say, you know what, I don't want to feel this feeling, so instead of dealing with it, I'm just going to drink a bottle of wine every night and take a sleeping pill and pretend that there's nothing going on until I have to deal with it again tomorrow. And I feel worse tomorrow because now I've got a hangover and my body is like, please stop putting this in me. Again, avoidance. When we avoid dealing with whatever it is that's stressing us out, all it does is pile on. All it does is just add to the stack. Isolating ourselves, and then any other thing that you can think of that you know that you do to cope with stress that you know is not healthy. You know it doesn't help, but you do it anyway, like binging, things like that. There's so many other things. You can go to the other extreme of dieting to the extreme and working out to the extreme because you get a high, off of working out and running and doing things like that, where you go to that other extreme of being super fit, but really you're not, because you're actually killing yourself. So when we talk about stress in and of itself, it's linked to every illness. Every disease in your body can have a root cause of stress. I feel like I'm cutting out. I can see my picture cutting out. Can you guys still hear me? Let me know. So, the stress that causes the inflammation is what then causes diseases on a cellular level. And it just depends on your specific body. It depends on your specific body type, your makeup, your metabolic makeup, your cellular or make up where it is that the stress attacks your body. And we know this. We know this. You think about men that have very stressful jobs that have heart attacks. It's a known common thing, right? Oh, I feel like I keep seeing myself cutting in and out. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. I'm going to try to wrap up. Okay, so I'm going to talk about some constructive lost signal. Can you hear me now? It's not telling me that I'm kicked out yet. I'm going to try to keep going. Okay, so some constructive ways to deal with stress. So again, asking yourself when you're in that stressful situation of whether or not this is something that is relevant to you and threatening to you, do you have the resources to cope with it? Here are some resources. Yes, you can hear me, Sunny. Thank you. Here's some resources. This is something I will say over and over and over again, and if you're like, that just sounds too cheesy, I'm not going to do it. That's your choice. That's fine. That's cool. But number one, keep a stress journal. And I talk about journaling a lot. I fought it for a while, and when I first got started, like I could only think of a few words to write, or maybe a few sentences, because I was blocked in that ability to open up and pour out. But once you stop thinking that you have to write something specific, thinking that you have to write perfectly, thinking that it has to make sense, just start writing. And oftentimes you can write if somebody is stressing you out, but it's not a situation where you need to confront them. You can write about it, and you'll feel better having gotten it out on paper without actually having to go and confront the person. So a stress journal, any kind of journal. Avoiding unnecessary stress. So one example I'll give you, before my daughter died, I did not realize when I was working out like a crazy person, I had goals that before my 40th birthday, I was going to be ripped. I was going to be smoking hot, and I was working out 5 and 6 days a week. Did not know at that time that I had the adrenal fatigue and was basically killing myself. Like I couldn't understand why I couldn't get rid of that layer of fat, but it was because I was putting that unnecessary stress on my body. And I'm going to talk again to another day. Somebody make a note for me that I'm going to talk again about exercise and gentler ways of exercise too. So put a pin in that for me. Boundaries. Talk about this all the time. Learn when to say no and putting up boundaries. You know when you get that gut feeling that you need to back off of a situation, that you need to back off at work, that you need a break, that you need some help at home. You know, and it's learning to be able to constructively ask for those things, for that support, and to learn to be able to say no and put things aside, even if it's just temporarily, not cleaning your house this week. To know that you need to take a break and say no. Expressing your feelings. We talk about this all the time. This is like my thing. Like, you got to dig into your feelings. You got to dig in and figure out what they're trying to teach you, right? And it will help you to then be able to cope with the stressors that you can't avoid in your life. I don't know what else to say. It's just, it's incredibly important to be willing to dig in to your emotions. Stop trying to control things that are out of your control. I am a recovering control freak. We'll say that. And it's blowing a lot of people's minds around me who were used to being able to rely on me to take care of situations, to handle plans, even if it was just plans for like play dates and fun things. The fact that I am no longer putting myself in charge of those things anymore, and I'm no longer caring if somebody did or didn't get the memo, because everybody's a grown-up, everybody's an adult, and if you don't, want to put a priority on something, that's on you, that's not on me. Releasing those things, releasing that control. The things that you can't control, obviously we cannot control the fact that our loved one is gone. We cannot control how other people around us behave. We can control how we behave. We can control how we feel and how we think, right? So it's putting those things in perspective. So, um, there's so many other things that are on this list that I cover all the time. Thanks, Sunny. I appreciate it. Like healthy forms of exercise, eating whole, healthy foods, not eating foods that just make you feel worse, meditating, doing yoga, getting enough sleep. These are things that we say over and over and over again, and it's one of those like, okay, I hear you, but I'm not actually going to do it. When you start actually doing these things and implementing these things, you will begin to feel better. You're not ever going to feel 100% like the world is my oyster, but you feel better. And is that what you want? Do you want to feel better? Do you want to release some stress? Yes, Sunny, letting go of micromanaging. It is a big deal. And I came from a job where I thought I had to micromanage people, but now I look back and think, I mean, I could have let people just, if you fail to do something, that's on you, not on me. In some instances, obviously not if it was a life or death situation. But when it comes to, my kids and their schoolwork and things like that, like you have a certain amount of responsibility for yourself, and I'm not going to constantly remind you. So just letting go of things that aren't even my burden to bear, to let it go. Don't we have enough on our plate? The fact that we are dealing with our own grief, we have our own family and friends that are the most important that we want to look out for and take care of, and that's it. Start there. Like, bare bones, the things that are the most important to you, the people that are the most important to you right now, that is all that matters right now, and let everybody else take care of their own selves. Sink or swim. Yes, and let other people shine. It gives them the opportunity to feel good about themselves when they do it themselves. When they take their own power back. That's it. That's pretty much like. There's so many other things. For me, especially like spending time with my kitty cats and things like that. Like there's so much research that has been shown that having animals helps chill you out. I'm all for that. That's definitely my idea of a good stress reliever. But the biggest thing too is getting help, asking for help, so that somebody who has been walking this path ahead of you can hold your hand and help you take the steps that you need to take to start taking care of yourself. And that is part of what I'm here for. I love bringing you all this content. I know that I am giving you very good information that will help you if you'll apply it, really let it sink in and apply it. I know that this is good stuff and that I can help you. But I also know that for there to be real, true, deep healing, you have to be willing to reach out and ask for help. The best opportunity and the fastest opportunity is, I'm not going to beat around the bush, it's for you to set up a time for us to talk. We can talk about where you're stuck and get you unstuck and create a plan to help you move forward wherever it is that you're stuck. If it's that you're definitely stuck in your emotions and in that type of healing, or you're not taking care of yourself, trying to figure out how to feed yourself and how to manage your time and take better care of yourself. Let's talk. I put my link to my calendar in the description of the video. So I invite you, if you are ready to feel better, I invite you to schedule a time to chat with me, and we'll find out, if we can move forward together. And I guarantee that I can give you at least some insight of where you're stuck and get you moving forward, if that's what you're ready for. If you're not ready for that, you don't want to be held accountable, and have that be an added stressor and pressure to do the work to move forward, That's okay too. It's okay if you're not ready, but I'm going to be here whenever you are ready. And whenever you are ready, I invite you to schedule a time to call me or for me to call you so that we can move forward. I believe that every single person here can heal and can feel better and can take better care of themselves and can create a life of passion and purpose and energy and health and wellness and love. It just starts with making that first decision to make a decision, right? So I hope that this helped y'all. Let me know in the comments, especially if you're catching the replay. Let me know if this was helpful for you, what kind of stress you're dealing with, and how you've worked at it. If there's anything else you would add to the list of things that have helped with stress, share with the class. We like to share here. And that's it. I'm going to go because I feel like I'm still starting to click in and out again with my internet. And it's just the way it goes. I got to get me some better internet, y'all. I love y'all so much, and we will chat soon. Bye.